Many Sorcery Contested Realm players ask the question, how on earth are you supposed to play Draft or Seal when booster boxes are out of stock? Today I would like to answer that question by introducing you the Cube. Hey everyone, how's it going? This is Hay from Wizard's Den, and today I would like to discuss about how to design and build a cube. The recent news on the out-of-stock issue of beta booster boxes resulted in everyone rationing the remaining boxes for limited play. But we still want some ways to continue having fun playing limited formats. One such way to do so is to use a cube. I'll go through this topic starting from what a cube is, how to design one, and show my example cube that I have built and show how to use it. So what is a cube? A cube is a collection of cards that are selected to be used for draft or sealed instead of regular booster packs. In a normal limited format, you open regular booster packs to play. But when you play limited using cubes, you randomly choose a certain amount of cards from the cube as a pseudo pack. As you use cards that are already opened, it doesn't require actual booster packs. That comes in handy, especially when it's hard to get booster boxes at affordable prices, which we are in right now. There are pros and cons for playing limited using a cube. Starting from the pros, the obvious is that you don't need booster packs, as I just explained. As you don't need booster packs and use cards that you already have, it costs you nothing after you spend your initial cost to assemble the cube. The third and the fourth point given here is one of the key advantages of using a cube. Because you are making the card selections, you will have a chance to optimize what gets in the card pool of your limited experience. If you've been playing Draft and Sorcery, don't you always see that same Femville Muse and Blizzard being passed around all the time, never being proactively picked? There are certain cards that are not usable in Draft, or sometimes both Draft and Constructed. Yes, I'm talking about you, Battering Ram. Those cards always become the leftover cards that just gets passed around in Draft all the time. A cube allows removing these cards that rarely get used, and it enhances the draft experience for having more useful cards to use. You can also balance some of the elements that seldomly gets used, or tone down some elements that tends to be too strong. Also, supporting different themes or interactions that is difficult to realize in normal sealed environment is possible. For example, trying to build a Grey Wolves deck in Draft is pretty difficult in a normal draft due to the inclusion rate of Grey Wolves in actual booster packs. However, you can do this in Cube as you can purposely increase the inclusion rate of Grey Wolves. This is one example, and there are various themes of cubes that can be built. Now the cons. First of all, you need to design one. Unless some store sells a pre-assembled cube, you need to design one from scratch or assemble one from someone else's card list. It does require some preparation to start playing. Also, you are not opening packs, so no, you will not be accidentally pulling surprise curios or a foil Philosopher's Stone. Finally, it is different from the actual draft or seal experience, so it might not be great as a practice match for a real tournament. Overall, these cons aren't really cons. They are just the result of a different playing style. It's like complaining that there are more than 2 players in a multiplayer match. A cube adds new ways to enjoy the game with infinitely different variations, and I certainly recommend you to try playing with it. Now let's talk about how to design a cube. You first outline the concept and specifications, then select the cards that support your concept, and finally test it out. Let's talk about the initial step. The first thing that I must comment is that there is no right or wrong in how to design a cube. There are many variations of styles and themes of cubes, and you can do whatever you want. However, there are some features that you do want to think about, and here are some of them. The first and the second one is important to determine the size of your cube. Typically, what you want to do is make your cube approximately 50% larger than it's required. For example, if you are expecting 8 people playing draft from a cube, you want to have enough cards to supply 12 people. This will add some randomness in the final card pool that is being chosen between different games. If you assume to make a 14-card pseudo pack, your 8-player draft cube should be at least 504 cards. Remember, you take out the last Atlas card from the pack, so you only use 14 cards in the 15-card pack. You should also decide which limited format you want to optimize your cube. Draft and sealed are inherently different in the maximum number of duplicate cards that can be accessed, as you share cards from multiple packs in draft, but not in sealed. For example, let's say you want to support Grey Wolves theme in your cube and you included 24 Grey Wolves in it. If you drafted from this cube, provided no one else decides to play with Grey Wolves, it is possible for you to obtain an average of 16 wolves for your deck. However, if you played sealed, you can only get 4 wolves. The format does have an impact on how well it supports the concept of your cube, so you should keep that in mind. Rarity constraint is straightforward. Do you want to mimic actual booster packs or do you want to go for a special ratio? One example of a special ratio is making a pauper cube, which you only use ordinary cards. Personally, I think following the rarity ratio used in actual booster packs works best, as it gives a similar play experience and it's easier to balance the cube. Here's a table on how many cards per rarity you should include for an 8-player cube to mimic a real booster pack. How many duplicate cards you want is another design choice you need to make. In Sorcery, we don't have enough cards to make cubes with only singleton cards, so you do need to think of the best balance of duplicates in your cube. Generally, it would be best to include only 1 copy of elite or unique card so you can allow various different options available for supporting different strategies. Finally, you would want to select which avatars should be allowed when using your cube. You can have the typical sorcerer only, or elemental avatars only, or sorcerer and elemental avatars, or other creative choices such as forcing everyone to use elementalist. You can be creative on what is available, and that could dictate how your cube is going to perform. After you decide what to do on all these specifications, you will now have to make your card selections. I would recommend using an Excel sheet to manage your selection so you can observe the balance between elements and card types easily. Finally, you test them. Tweak the cube if you find some imbalance in power levels or you find out some cards get used seldomly. Just like you tweak your constructed decks, tweaking your cube by trial and error is an essential step for optimization. So, now I would like to present my own cube I built for the events I host. This is a draft cube that is intended for 8 players. Each player takes 14 cards as a pseudo pack from the cube. There are 504 cards, which is 50% more cards than it is required for 8 players. When choosing 14 cards as a pack, each player takes 10 cards from the ordinary pile, 3 from the exceptional, and 1 from the elite or unique pile to mimic the real booster pack. The available choice of avatars is limited to the 4 elemental avatars. There are 2 things I wanted to do in this cube. The first is to support the Grey Wolves archetype and also make water more playable by adding cards that support flooding and selecting minions that allows water to be more defensive. I think both of these will make the draft experience more exciting by supporting wider strategies. The first thing I started choosing was the elite and the unique cards. I made my selection by adding as much artifacts as possible as any element can use them. I only selected cards that adds complexity to the board state, so I took out all the mana ramping cards as that does nothing to the board itself. I tried to add the same amount of cards for each element and balance it out. I decided not to use much sites other than Floodplain and Cloud City, as I felt balancing was more difficult. I also removed or reduced the number of certain good cards for balancing, such as Shield Maidens. The final cube composition is given as an Excel sheet in the video description. By the way, you do need to have a sight station separate to the cube to play this. Also, make sure to provide the same colored sleeves for sights if you decide to include sights in your cube. It's better to use sleeves for the basic sights, as I figured out that they do wear out fairly quickly without them, and you want the sight stations to last long. I hope you guys try out my cube and make tweaks and make a better version with your own twists. So that is it for today's episode. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for future episodes regarding sorcery. Thanks for watching, and until next time, have a great game.